Good evening from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Less than 30 minutes from now, the engines on the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft will fire for 4 minutes and 39 seconds in a braking maneuver to decelerate the Soyuz in orbit, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its glide back to Earth and a landing on the south central steppe of Kazakhstan just 39 minutes after sunrise on a Sunday morning. Welcome to our coverage of the return to Earth of Peggy Whitson, Jack Fisher, and Fyodor Yurchikhin, who undocked from the International Space Station earlier today and who are now in a position for the deorbit burn that is scheduled just within 28 minutes from now. That will begin the final leg of their journey home and an end to their record-setting mission. The Orbit 3 team of flight controllers on console at this hour here in the Mission Control Room, working in concert with Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow, who are overseeing their consoles in support of all of the activities that will lead to the return to Earth of Whitson, Fisher, and Yurchikhin, with a landing scheduled at 8:21 and 50 seconds p.m. Central Time, 9:21 and 50 seconds p.m. Eastern Time, which will be 7:21 and 50 seconds a.m. Sunday morning in Kazakhstan. The landing preparations have gone by the book throughout the course of the day. It was just over 5 hours ago when the 6 crew members comprising the Expedition 52 crew said farewell to one another as they began the work to close the hatches and to begin the preparation for undocking. Russian segment of the International Space Station, a look at Peggy Whitson as she provided a final hug to her crewmates who are remaining on board, Paulo Nespoli, Randy Bresnik, the new station commander, and Sergei Rosansky. That was duplicated by Fyodor Yurchikhin that you see there, and Jack Fisher, before they moved back inside the MS-04 spacecraft to begin the work to close the hatches. The hatches were closed respectively on the Soyuz side of the docking interface at 1:41 p.m. Central Time, followed 2 minutes later by the closure of the Poisk hatch. After that, there were a series of leak checks conducted over the course of an hour or so. The Soyuz was on autonomous power at that point, and everything was in readiness for the undocking to follow. The undocking occurred right on schedule at 4:58 p.m. Central Time as the International Space Station and the Soyuz spacecraft traveled 252 miles over southeast Mongolia. The Soyuz slowly backed away from the Poisk docking port, conducting 2 separation burns, the first of which lasted 8 seconds, the second of which lasted 15 seconds to begin an acceleration away from the station to a point at which the Soyuz is now, all things in readiness for the deorbit burn that is coming up just 25 minutes from now.
Copy. We copy loud and clear.
Russian flight controllers have been talking to the crew frequently over the course of the past 2 hours. The 3 departing crew members who are on the verge of returning to Earth, Whitson, Yurchikhin, and Fisher. They are clad in their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits, strapped into their respective seats in the descent module, the center section of the Soyuz spacecraft. Yurchikhin in the center seat as the Soyuz commander, flanked to his left by Jack Fisher, who is board engineer number 1. Peggy Whitson strapped into the seat on the right side of Yurchikhin as board engineer number 2. This crew arrived at the station at different times, with Peggy Whitson launching last November to the International Space Station. Her mission extended to maintain a 3-person crew on board the International Space Station. Whitson is landing tonight with 288 days in space on this, her 3rd long-duration mission, having compiled 4,623 orbits of the Earth in a mission spanning 122.2 million miles. With her 288 days in space on this flight, she will come home tonight with more days in space than any American astronaut in history, 665 days in space, putting her 8th on the all-time list, and just 8 days fewer than Fyodor Yurchikhin. Yurchikhin and Fisher are coming home with 136 days in space, 2,176 orbits of the Earth, their mission spanning 57.5 million miles after their launch back in April on this MS-04 spacecraft. Yurchikhin returns to Earth tonight with 673 days in space on this flight. Fisher, of course, and this his first mission in space, will have accrued 136 days in space.
Continues to change all the time. We have 0, 0, and then 0, 1. It was 0, 1 for some time. Now it is 0, 3. Copy, Fyodor.
We're just about 22.5 minutes away from the deorbit burn that will begin the journey home for the Soyuz MS-04. As we mentioned, this will be a 4-minute, 39-second burn of the Soyuz engines that will enable it to drop out of orbit for the ride back to Earth. In this animation, you see the deorbit burn. A short time after the deorbit burn, as the Soyuz begins to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, there will be a pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. Only the middle section survives, that being the descent module with the crew strapped into their respective seats. Entry into the Earth's atmosphere is scheduled at 7:59 p.m. Central Time tonight. Temperatures around the Soyuz will build up to about 2,500 degrees. That will be followed by a command to open up the parachutes just after 8 p.m., about 8:07 p.m. Central Time. And once the main chute is deployed, the major activity after that will be the firing of the soft landing engines on the Soyuz spacecraft just a couple of seconds before touchdown, with landing scheduled at 8:21 and 50 seconds p.m. Central Time at a point about 89 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, where the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces and a team of NASA support personnel overnighted, having arrived in Zhezkazgan on a flight from Karaganda, which is the staging city for tonight's recovery operations. The personnel, the search and recovery personnel and the NASA team in Zhezkazgan will be boarding a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters soon to begin to take off in sequential fashion to arrive in a racetrack pattern, an oval-shaped pattern around the landing site, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz under its main chute. And once the Soyuz touches down, those helicopters will land very quickly, one after the other, to begin the process of extracting the crew from the descent module, placing them in reclining chairs, and then bringing them fairly quickly into a nearby inflatable medical tent for initial medical tests and for them to get out of their Russian launch and entry suits. The weather at the landing site is forecast to be ideal in the early morning hours of Sunday morning, with this landing scheduled just 39 minutes after sunrise. Just a few clouds at 10,000 feet, light winds, temperatures expected to be about 77 degrees Fahrenheit for the return of Whitson, Yurchikhin, and Fisher. At the airport in Karaganda, which is the staging city for tonight's landing operations, a European Space Agency aircraft is on the tarmac, having arrived on a flight from the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, earlier today, with Hurricane Harvey having disrupted the departure of the NASA Gulfstream jet from Houston to do a direct return of Whitson and Fisher from Karaganda back to Houston. The International Space Station Partnership went into action and collaborated on a backup plan that had the European Space Agency involved in flying its aircraft to Karaganda to pick up Whitson and Fisher and to fly them back to Cologne. The NASA Gulfstream jet is in Cologne and will take a handoff of Whitson and Fisher after they are returned to Cologne following a brief time in Karaganda. And then the NASA Gulfstream jet will take Whitson and Fisher back to Houston for a return on Sunday evening. No loss of science, no loss of research, but a rather clever, innovative, collaborative way of maintaining a seamless return of Whitson and Fisher back to their homes. Just 18 minutes away now from the deorbit burn that will start the trek home for the Soyuz MS-04. Again, weather conditions are ideal. It is shortly before sunrise. We're about 30 minutes away from sunrise at the landing site, and the weather conditions are, they just couldn't be better for the return of Whitson, Fisher, and Yurchikhin. Left on board the International Space Station, the newly comprised Expedition 53 crew officially underway. The change of increments from Expedition 52 to 53 occurred at the moment of undocking earlier today. Randy Bresnik on the right side of your screen, the NASA astronaut, is the new commander of the International Space Station, joined by Sergei Rosansky of the Russian Federal Space Agency in the middle, and on the left, Paolo Nespoli of the European Space Agency. They will be a three-man crew only for about 10 days until the launch of the next trio of residents to the International Space Station. That is scheduled for September 12th, when Russian Soyuz commander Alexander Mazurkin and NASA astronauts Joe Acaba and Mark Vande Hei launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome on September 12th U.S. time, which will be in the wee hours of September 13th in Baikonur, on a 4-orbit, 6-hour journey to reach the International Space Station, bringing it back very quickly to a 6-man crew. One thing to note, as the Soyuz begins its descent back into the atmosphere, communications, as is usually the case with Soyuz landings, are expected to be a bit choppy. In fact, there will be a point when the Soyuz is about 120 kilometers away from the International Space Station on its descent, where VHF voice communications may become unavailable from time to time until the Soyuz reaches the proximity of an Antonov fixed-wing aircraft at the landing site, which will operate as a airborne data and communications relay back to the flight control team at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov.
30 seconds before we inhibit. Send the inhibit command. Copy. The attitude is nominal. So the reading is 00, more than 7 minutes.
We should be just minutes away from the point at which the first of the helicopters that are at the airport in Zhezkazgan will be wheels up, heading for the landing site. And again, this series of helicopters will arrive at the landing site and form a racetrack pattern as they await the arrival of the Soyuz spacecraft and its touchdown, landing again scheduled at 8:21 and 50 seconds p.m. Central Time. The expected coordinates, at least the predicted coordinates for the landing, are 47.2 degrees north latitude, 69.3 degrees east longitude. We'll see, that would be the bullseye, the target for the Soyuz to touch down.
So the F00, more than 8 minutes. So the attitude is nominal, the crew is feeling well. Copy. Unintelligible.
With the crew strapped into their respective seats in the descent module of the Soyuz MS-04, we are inside 13 minutes until the start of the deorbit burn. Again, this will be a 4-minute, 39-second firing of the Soyuz engines to slow it down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit for its descent back to Earth. The International Space Station and the Soyuz MS-04 are flying 252 miles above the Earth, moving from northwest to southeast, about to enter an orbital sunset that will carry the two spacecraft across the southern coast of Chile and back out across the South Atlantic.
Moscow Olympus 032054. We are standing by for the maneuver on display 44. All the rest is without any issues. And we expect the thruster firing at 032854. Copy.
Russian flight controllers talking to Fyodor Yurchikhin, the Soyuz commander, strapped into the center seat of the MS-04, flanked on his left by Jack Fisher, flanked on his right by Peggy Whitson. The Yurchikhin is wrapping up his 5th flight into space. 4 involved Soyuz missions. His first flight back in 2002 was a space shuttle flight. Yurchikhin again will come home this evening, early Sunday morning Kazakhstan time, with 673 days in space, 7th on the all-time endurance list, and just 8 days ahead of Peggy Whitson.
Minuta.
1 minute is left.
Less than 9 minutes away now from the deorbit burn. Everything in order. The crew is reported feeling well. They've been briefed on the search and recovery forces. Rosaviatsa is the name of the civil search and recovery forces associated with the Russian Soyuz recovery operations. Again, everything in order. The Soyuz spacecraft in good shape. All is set for the deorbit burn less than 8.5 minutes from now.
It is not possible to control the attitude. We are standing by for the maneuver, and we have GSO in attitude. Now we have maneuver on. Inaudible. We are sending K car 3. So we sent the command and we have F9 illuminated. Copy. 032754. We are watching the regime stabilization mode and the covers are open. Dima Moscow, Olympus. How copy? We copy you loud and clear. Go ahead. About GS3 command, can we send it earlier or not? Or should we send it on time? You can send it right now. GS3. Copy. 0322, GS3 is sent. We sent the command, Zhenya 3. Copy.
Control, L.
I am controlling the maneuver. Unintelligible.
Now 6 minutes away from the deorbit burn. The Soyuz MS-04 is in the correct orientation for the 4-minute, 39-second braking maneuver that will start the trip out of low Earth orbit for Whitson, Fisher, and Yurchikhin. Once the deorbit burn is complete, the next milestone will be the depressurization of the uppermost section of the Soyuz spacecraft called the orbital module. That will set the stage for the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz that is scheduled at 7:56 p.m. Central Time. Space station and the Soyuz about to pass over the Falkland Islands in the extreme South Atlantic to begin a southwest to northeasterly track, 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, coming up on the 3-minute 40-second mark until the deorbit burn.
3 minutes.
2 минуты до минуты.
2 minutes before 1 minute. Yes, that's right. They're joking.
Coming up on the 2.5-minute mark until the start of the deorbit burn, you'll hear your Chicken calling off tank pressures and fuel consumption so that the flight control team in Korolyov that you're looking at in this balcony camera view can have an opportunity to track the progress of this 4-minute, 39-second braking maneuver. The Soyuz operating under the call sign of Olympus, that is your Chicken's call sign. You'll hear that offered frequently. Your Chicken has been told, even though communications might be choppy on the way down, he'll be urged by the flight control team to provide status reports and updates on how the crew is doing and how the vehicle is doing.
No, it is 1 minute before. 1 minute is left before the burn. That's right.
"90 seconds until the start of the deorbit burn."
I got the regime stable, SK.
Inside 1 minute.
SKD covers are open and we have regime stabil. How copy Moscow? Everything is nominal. We're standing by for the indicator. SKD cover is open, indicator is illuminated. Copy. Olympus, please tell us the time and the delta V when you can.
Ожидаемое значение включения СКД 032828.
0328.
20 seconds away from the deorbit burn.
We are standing by. Copy.
Time by time about okay?
Принято.
Yeah, not so fast, not so often. Time by time. Есть включение двигателя.
Thruster firing is on.
The deorbit burn is underway.
You can see the thrust. Acceleration. Copy.
Импульса 0,47 набрать.
047.
Давление фальшонка.
The pressure on the burners and the schedule parameters are nominal.
На 30 секунд отработки.
30 seconds.
This burn again will last 4 minutes, 39 seconds, slowing the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second.
Copy.
Но быстро меняется день.
It is incrementing very fast, Dima.
Буду говорить. Хорошо.
Copy.
Просто скважность большая. Минута.
1 minute. Thruster firing.
Давление фальшонка, параметры
The pressure and schedule parameters are nominal.
26,95.
95. Copy.
Полторы минуты.
1 minute and a half. Thruster firing.
Давление фальшонка.
The pressure and schedule parameters are nominal.
40,63.
4063. Copy.
Штатный по таблице.
Minute and a half into the burn, everything looks good so far.
2 minutes.
Двигатель ожидает.
We're standing by for the parameters.
Тяга 0,40.
Thrust 046.
2
2 minutes. 56.4.
Принято.
56 and 4. 56 and 4. The pressure and cadeo parameters are nominal. 230. Подожди.
Шестьдесят
67 and 6.
Дима, скважина 2 метра была, следующая была 69 с копейками.
And 69. 247. Moscow.
46,99.
46.99.
3 минуты.
Coming up on 3 minutes into the burn, about a minute and a half to go.
83,16.
83.16.
Давление форсунки, параметры кедовой нормы.
Cadeo parameters nominal.
Тяга 0,47.
And thrust 047.
Девяносто шесть 57.
96.57. 4 minutes.
Давление форсунки, параметры кедовой нормы.
The pressure and cadeo parameters are nominal.
About 1 minute left in the deorbit burn. So far, so good.
Сто 10 и 66.
110 and 66.
Принято.
Copy.
116 отработали. Ожидаем выключения.
And we had 116
Принято.
for the burn and standing by for thrust.
Standing by for the termination of the deorbit burn.
123.
1 to 3.
Принято.
Copy.
125,7.
125.7.
95.
Inaudible.
Отработали 128,00.
And 128.00 for the burn.
Есть разрешение разделения УГС.
And we have
The deorbit burn is complete. Everything looked great. Peggy Whitson, Jack Fisher, Fyodor Yurchikhin on the way home with landing scheduled at 8:21 and 50 seconds p.m. Central Time.
Наблюдаем подъемное давление в БО.
the pressure in BO is decreasing.
Принялся. Давление высота стабильно 786.
And we have
Докладываю.
785 for pressure in SS.
Закрываем, потому что
Again, the helicopters in Jezkazgan, we should be getting reports shortly that the first of the series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters that are operated by Rosaviatsa, the search and recovery forces, and are going to be populated with both Russian and NASA recovery personnel, including flight surgeons and nurses, to attend to the returning crew members. We should be hearing shortly that these helicopters are airborne for the landing site from Jezkazgan, about 89 miles away from the landing site, to arrive in a racetrack pattern around the landing zone, waiting for the Soyuz to descend under its main parachute. Again, once the landing has occurred, the helicopters will land fairly quickly in sequential fashion and begin the process of extracting the crew from the spacecraft, placing them in reclining chairs near the Soyuz itself before carrying the crew members one by one into a nearby inflatable medical tent so that they can get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits and begin the initial medical testing.
Inaudible.
We expect that the 3 crew members will spend up to 2 hours in the medical tent, again undergoing initial medical testing, all for scientific research, before they are brought one by one into 3 Russian Mi-8 helicopters to fly independent of one another back to the staging city of Karaganda, which is about an hour and 45-minute helicopter flight. At the Karaganda airport, there is the usual arrival ceremony before the crew members, at least the U.S. crew members, Whitson and Fisher, will be brought to an European Space Agency aircraft in Karaganda for a flight to Cologne, Germany. Your Chicken will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for a flight back to Star City, Russia. In Cologne, there will be a handoff of Whitson and Fisher to a NASA plane that is at the Cologne airport for the flight back to Houston.
What do we have for time? We have to prepare the F3. Yes, in work. Yes, the command has been issued. Indicator is illuminated.
Лагать должен полный спуск. Хотите спуск?
Moscow, how do you read us? Everything is nominal on board. All the systems are working nominally.
Fyodor Yurchikhin, the Soyuz commander, in the center seat of the descent module of the MS-04, continuing to provide a running commentary for the Russian flight controllers in Korolyov on the condition of his spacecraft under the call sign of Olympus. Russian Mi-8 helicopters beginning to take off both from Zhezkazgan, the forwardly placed staging point for tonight's landing operation, as well as Karaganda, which is the main staging city to the northeast of Zhezkazgan. Once again, reports from the search and recovery forces indicate that the first in the series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters are airborne, headed from Zhezkazgan to the landing zone, about 89 miles to the southeast. Everything proceeding right on the money for a landing about 40 minutes or so from now.
Москва, Олимпом.
Moscow, this is Olympus.
Самочувствие
We're working nominally. We're feeling good.
84 стабильно.
Pressure in ESA is 784. Visors are closed.
Принято.
Command 3 has been sent. Copy.
Дима, слышу тебя практически на пределе.
Dima,
Если можно, вопрос.
I can hear you, but
Можно включать по времени или сейчас можно?
I have to strain my ears.
We're about 13 minutes away from the expected pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. The uppermost section, the orbital module, has been depressurized in advance of the separation of the modules, leaving the descent module on its own with the heat shield in the direction of travel.
Олимпы, СУПу Москвы.
Olympus, this is Moscow.
Олимпы, СУПу.
Olympus, this is Moscow. How do you read us?
Олимпы,
Olympus,
Москвы.
this is Moscow. How do you read us?
Олимпы, СУПу.
Olympus, this is Moscow.
Суд Москвы Олимпом. Как?
Moscow, this is Olympe.
Самочувствие хорошее.
The crew is feeling good.
180.
The pressure in SR is 780.
Принято. Давление высота 780.
Copy 780. Pressure in SR. Fedor VP1 now on time. Copy that.
This view from a balcony camera overlooking the ISS flight control room at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, less than 9 minutes away from the expected separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft. And here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the Orbit 3 team watching along and communicating with their Russian colleagues and counterparts as Whitson, Fisher, and Yurchikhin move steadily toward their landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. All is quiet aboard the Soyuz MS-04, as well as in the flight control rooms, as we are approaching the point of the expected separation of the three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft, that pyrotechnic module separation anticipated about 6 minutes from now. This shows the animation from the point of the deorbit burn that took place a short time ago through the module separation and the deployment of the parachutes. The parachute deployment unfolds with the two pilot parachutes first deployed, the second of which extracts a drogue chute. The drogue chute is then released, measuring 24 square meters, slowing the Soyuz down from a descent rate of 230 meters per second to just 80 meters per second. The main parachute then released, covering an area of some 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of just 7.2 meters per second. Its harnesses first allowing the Soyuz to descend at a canted angle of about 30 degrees to expel heat, then shifts the Soyuz to a straight vertical descent for the final landing of the soft landing engines just a couple of seconds above the ground.
Copy 777. Pressure in SR.
We are about 30 minutes away from touchdown in south-central Kazakhstan. Again, the targeted landing zone about 89 miles to the southeast of Zhezkazgan, where a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters with Russian and NASA personnel are taking off in sequential fashion to arrive in an area around the landing zone. Once the Soyuz approaches a bit closer, they'll be communicating directly with a large Antonov fixed-wing aircraft that is a flying command and control center relaying voice and data back to the Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. There's a cutaway view of the descent module, the 3 crew members strapped in their respective seats. Yurchikhin in the center seat, as the Soyuz commander, flanked on his left by Jack Fisher, and Peggy Whitson is on the right. This graphic shows basically the essential path of the entry of the Soyuz vehicle and all of the various activities that precede touchdown, which is expected at 8:21 and 50 seconds p.m. Central Time.
Sub Moskva Olympus.
Moscow Olympus. Separation program has been started. Controlled descent. The pressure is 777 in SA, and it is stable. The crew is feeling good.
Принято.
Copy.
Fyodor Yurchikhin reporting back that everything appears to be going by the book as we stand by for module separation.
Олимпа, ожидаем разделения.
Olympus standing by for separation.
We now have confirmation from the Russian flight controllers in Korolyov of module separation right on track. So the descent module now flies with its heat shield facing the direction of travel to repel the 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit forces of heat that will build up shortly at atmospheric entry. Again, the module separation occurred right on time at 7:56 p.m. Central Time. The next major event coming up in about 2 minutes, and that will be the Soyuz's entry into the atmosphere at an altitude of about 327,000 feet. This will be the first sensation of gravity for Peggy Whitson since she launched almost 10 months ago, and for Jack Fisher and Fyodor Yurchikhin since their launch back on April 20th. About 22 minutes until touchdown, everything continuing to proceed on track, on time, and by the book for the Soyuz MS-04, bringing Peggy Whitson home after her record-breaking mission, as well as Jack Fisher and Fyodor Yurchikhin aboard the Soyuz in the descent module. They are about to enter the Earth's atmosphere. This is the point of the entry for the Soyuz and its occupants, where they will enter into the plasma regime, the area of peak heating on the spacecraft, where temperatures around the spacecraft build to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit as it plunges through the atmosphere toward the landing site. This is about a 5-minute period. Once they exit from the plasma regime, maximum G loads against the occupants on board the descent module will begin to build up to about 4 to 5 times that of Earth's gravity. inside 20 minutes until touchdown. Very quiet here in the flight control room at the Johnson Space Center, as it is at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. The crew in the plasma regime right now, they should be exiting that about 3 minutes from now. This is the period of entry where communications are expected and often are the worst. While the Soyuz is in this plasma regime, they should be emerging from this period of peak heating on the Soyuz spacecraft, being repelled by the heat shield a short time from now, and should be able to regain communications with the Antonov fixed-wing aircraft that is flying in the area of the landing zone to the southeast of Zhezkazgan. All of the components, both airborne and the all-terrain vehicles at the landing zone in Kazakhstan, are in place, ready for the arrival of the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft.
Moscow.
Landing scheduled within 17 minutes.
We copy loud and clear. Everything is nominal. We are moving along the curve. What about the offset? 4. 4. The G load is decreasing to 97. So we will have a small LOS, and the discrete is practically 0. We are feeling well. So everything is good. We deactivated the tablets. When is the OSP time? Copy. The time is inaudible.
That report from Fyodor Yurchikhin indicating that the G-forces against the crew, which built up to about 4 to 5 Gs, is decreasing. The crew is feeling well, and they're right on the center line heading for their landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. Landing scheduled about 14.5 minutes from now.
040728 is the oil spare time.
We're coming up on the command for shoot deploy. We'll be standing by for confirmation of that. About 12.5 minutes until touchdown. Standing by for confirmation of shoot deploy that will likely come through the search and recovery forces in the area of the landing zone.
Unintelligible.
And there's our video of the Soyuz MS-04 under its main chute and the nominal venting of hydrogen peroxide from the thrusters. Everything is in great shape. We should be seeing the jettisoning of the heat shield that will expose the altimeter that will provide altitude and rate of descent information to the Soyuz's computers. Everything is in great shape, just 11 minutes until touchdown. Just 10.5 minutes until our expected touchdown. Peggy Whitson, Jack Fisher, Fyodor Yurchikin, and there is the jettisoning of the heat shield right on schedule. On a Sunday morning, less than an hour after sunrise, the Soyuz MS-04 gliding to its landing site, everything in great shape. The crew has been in contact now with the search and recovery forces. About 8.5 minutes until touchdown. The Soyuz gently descending under its main parachute. The Soyuz launched with just 2 people on board, Yurchikhin and Fisher, back on April 20th, coming home with Peggy Whitson, having accumulated 665 days in space on 3 flights, 288 days on this mission. Picture's worth 1,000 words in this case. 7 minutes until touchdown. Everything proceeding on track. Six minutes until touchdown. Temperature at the landing site about 77 degrees Fahrenheit under crystal clear skies. Greeting Yurchikhin, Fisher, and Whitson home from the International Space Station. And again, just a few feet off the ground, there'll be a firing of the Soyuz's soft landing engines, one final braking maneuver before touchdown. Search and recovery forces and the Russian Mi-8 helicopters are in a racetrack pattern around the landing site, ready to form a welcoming party for Yurchikhin, Fisher, and Whitson as soon as they touch down. Landing scheduled just over 4 minutes from now. All of the entry milestones have unfolded in trip hammer fashion in great shape for the Soyuz spacecraft and its occupants. Just about 2.5 minutes until touchdown. You can hear the sound of the radio beacon on the Soyuz spacecraft, very audible and very clearly heard by the search and recovery forces. About 2 minutes until touchdown. And one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters in the foreground. Just seconds away from touchdown now. Peggy Whitson, Fyodor Yurchikhin, and Jack Fisher are about to return to terra firma. Touchdown. Touchdown confirmed at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time. Simply spectacular video almost all the way from shoot deploy to touchdown. Again, the Soyuz MS-04 and its 3 occupants, Peggy Whitson, Fyodor Yurchikhin, Jack Fisher, back on Earth. The all-terrain vehicles and the initial search and recovery helicopters will now begin to make their way towards the Soyuz spacecraft to begin the process of safing the vehicle and extracting the crew. Once again, you're watching live television from the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. The Soyuz is back on Earth with its 3 occupants. Landing confirmed at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time. It is 7:25 a.m. now in Kazakhstan on Sunday morning. As we watch a variety of as we wait for the search and recovery forces to move into place alongside the Soyuz vehicle to begin the extraction of the crew. Just to recap all of the events for the return of the Expedition 52 crew members went in perfect fashion throughout the course of the day. The hatches closed between the Soyuz and the International Space Station's Poisk module at 1:41 p.m. Central Time this afternoon. Undocking occurred over southeast Mongolia at 4:58 p.m. Central, 5:58 p.m. Eastern Time. The deorbit burn occurred some 2.5 hours later at 7:28 p.m. Central Time. It went by the book, no issues. The separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz and the deployment of the chute. And of course, you saw the spectacular video for some 14 minutes of the Soyuz's descent under its main parachute for a touchdown at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time. On the front screen of the Russian Mission Control Center, the familiar words in Cyrillic, Jest Posadka, they've landed. The television will be restored once the all-terrain vehicles with the television equipment at the landing site make their way to the spacecraft. This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking again at a picture of the Russian Flight Control Room at the Russian Mission Control Center. Landing occurring about 10 minutes ago at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time. We're standing by for all-terrain vehicles that possess all of the television equipment to provide live TV from the landing site to move into position alongside the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft so we can watch the extraction of the crew. The crew will be placed in chairs alongside the spacecraft to spend a few minutes getting their equilibrium back before they're carried into a nearby inflatable medical tent for initial medical tests and to get out of their Russian launch and entry suits. The crew members, after about 2 hours in that tent, will be flown in individual helicopters about an hour and 45 minutes from the landing site back to the staging city of Karaganda. This is Mission Control Houston. It has been about 17 minutes since the landing of the Soyuz MS-04 spacecraft, which appeared to be a bullseye touchdown. We're awaiting the resumption of television from the landing site through the repositioning of the all-terrain vehicles by the spacecraft. We're hoping to get that television back shortly. Everything with the descent of the Soyuz was right on the timeline, and every major milestone was tripped off in great fashion. So as we stand by, we'll just recap the fact that Peggy Whitson returned to Earth tonight with 288 days on this, her third long-duration mission, 665 days in all, more days in space than any American astronaut in history. Fyodor Yurchikhin, with 136 days on his mission, along with Jack Fisher, accumulated now 673 days in space, just 8 days more than Whitson. Yurchikhin 7th on the all-time endurance list. Right behind him, Whitson 8th on the all-time endurance list. And we are now receiving video from the landing site. On the right side of your screen, Jack Fisher, back home on Earth after 136 days in space. And Fyodor Yurchikhin, 7th on the all-time endurance list, looking very calm and placid in the early morning sunshine on a Sunday morning on the south central steppe of Kazakhstan. 673 days in space on 5 flights. As you can see behind Yurchikhin and Fisher, the Soyuz spacecraft landed on its side or wound up on its side after touchdown, which is fairly common for Soyuz landings. Again, a view of Jack Fisher at the landing site, and here comes Peggy Whitson. So all three crew members now out of the Soyuz MS-04.
Все, молодчина.
That's it. Good job.
Заметно сделано.
Да. Take measurements.
Okay. Сделайте второй, наверное.
Peggy Whitson back on Earth after 665 days in space on her 3 missions, 288 days on this, her 3rd long-duration mission. After a short period here, the crew will be carried in those chairs into a nearby inflatable medical tent for the start of medical examinations that should last about 2 hours before they are flown on individual helicopters about 1 hour and 45 minutes back to the staging city of Karaganda, which is to the northeast of this landing zone.
You still there?
Reading measurements. Taking blood pressure.
Jen, if you need water or anything, I've got it right here.
Еще раз. Сейчас повторное измерение. Давление. Сейчас повторное. Пока меряется. Готовы?
Are you ready?
Значит, второе.
Reading saturation numbers. What are the readings? Reading oxygen saturation numbers.
Again, you're watching live television from the landing site in south-central Kazakhstan. It has been about 26 minutes since the Soyuz MS-04 touched down. Right on schedule at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:21 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning. Welcome back, Peggy. Flowers for Peggy Whitson from one of the members of the Search and Recovery Forces.
Smoother ride home this time?
You want down? That's right. She's ready. She's on. All right. Hello? Hey, kiddo. How you doing? Pretty good.
Jack Fisher, 136 days in space since he was launched with your Chicken as a two-man crew back on April 20th. Fyodor Yurchikhin with 5 flights now in the books in his career. 673 days in space, good for 7th on the all-time endurance list. Peggy Whitson being moved a bit closer to her crewmates so that they can have a photo opportunity here at the landing site. They should be carried very short time from now into the inflatable medical tent for the start of medical testing and to get out of their Russian launch and entry suits.
So let's move. Who's going to carry the commander? Hold on a second. 1, 2, lift.
And your Chicken now being carried toward the medical tent.
Watch my shoulder.
And now Peggy Whitson being carried toward the medical tent right behind your Chicken. Fisher will follow shortly. And Jack Fisher being carried toward the medical tent. All three crew members again will doff their Sokol launch and entry suits and get into more comfortable clothing for a period of medical testing that will last about an hour and a half to 2 hours before they begin helicopter flights back to the staging city in Karaganda. The Soyuz spacecraft now being hoisted upright so that science samples and other cargo returned to Earth can be extracted.
Peggy. Okay, let's enter. Anatoly Vasilyevich, would you say a few words for mission control? It's right here. Yes, I know that very well. That's why I'm climbing there. Okay, let me take photographs. Okay, go ahead.
All three crew members now in the inflatable medical tent near the Soyuz spacecraft that you see there. RSC Energia personnel will soon be working to extract cargo and scientific samples.
What about the second one?
The crew members once again will doff their Sokol launch and entry suits and get into more comfortable clothing. There will be a period of medical testing before they board helicopters for a flight back to the staging city in Karaganda. We're standing by to see if we will receive any replays from the helicopters of the descent of the Soyuz MS-04, any additional landing video.
We already have his we already have his kids. Polikov is not here. Well, he'll be coming shortly.
Они еще не вылетели, но они уже выпали. Да. Добрый день. Здесь можно поделиться. Мы сейчас на съемках. А ты пока нам там. Еще маленький один ящик. Ой, мешок достать. It's all about experience. Он в глубине где-то маленький, по-моему. По-моему, большой.
I think when they were stowing, the small one was in the bottom.
And now we're receiving replays of the descent of the Soyuz MS-04, with the landing having occurred within the hour at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:21 p.m. Eastern Time.
This is mine.
Так, а что я сижу, мне хоть сразу свои бумажки-то. Хотя Серега не пойдет.
Well, Sergey hasn't gone to the capsule yet, so I can get the paperwork.
Нет, ты двинул. Извини, пожалуйста.
And once again, this replay now from one of the forwardly placed search and recovery helicopters of the descent of the Soyuz spacecraft. Hopefully this will give us a great view of the soft landing engine firing and the touchdown of the Soyuz that occurred at 8:21 p.m. Central Time. Again, you're watching a replay, a video from one of the search and recovery helicopters of the final seconds of the descent of the Soyuz spacecraft to its landing in south-central Kazakhstan. And you clearly saw the soft landing engines firing a second or two before touchdown. Peggy Whitson, Fyodor Yurchikhin, and Jack Fisher were extracted in fairly rapid fashion from the Soyuz, are now all in the nearby inflatable medical tent, doffing their Sokol launch and entry suits and getting into more comfortable clothing for a period of routine medical testing. And a great view of the Soyuz being pulled onto its side by the force of its large main parachute. On a Sunday morning, the landing occurring about 39 minutes after sunrise at the landing site. And yet another view from one of the all-terrain vehicles of the touchdown of the Soyuz MS-04. This is live video from the landing site as the RSC Energia technical personnel reel in the parachute, the main parachute, that assisted in the descent of the Soyuz spacecraft to its landing. Now you're watching an additional replay of the extraction of the crew that took place a short time after touchdown. Our live coverage picked up at the point in which two of the crew members, Yurchikhin and Fisher, were already in their chairs. This is a replay of the extraction of the crew from the Soyuz MS-04.
Это у него сглаживает колебания, да, вот это, понимаешь?
The component that smoothes the fluctuations.
Again, this is a replay of activity that took place within the hour of the extraction of the crew inside the Soyuz MS-04 vehicle. And there you see the first of the crew members coming out. That would be Fyodor Yurchikhin. The three crew members were extracted in fairly rapid fashion with no issues associated. They are now inside the inflatable medical tent at the landing site undergoing initial medical testing.
I understand. Let's free up some space here. We put this down for the crew members. You can stand here behind the seat. Should I give you the baseball hat? Could you tuck this in, please? Careful with the strap.
coming up next? Yeah. Jacob's coming up next.
Там 2 шага назад сделайте. Ну, 2 шага назад.
Pantichin, take 2 steps back. Reading the parameters. It was a soft landing. No more readings reported. Reading parameters. So we're going to take the gloves. Where is it? Is it in the niche? No. Ask Mr. Malikov. He needs to be taking it. It's in my descent kit and another descent kit. Okay.
Я буду набираться.
Be careful with the legs. Did you take the gloves? What about the goggles? Could you please give us the gloves? These ones as well? Yes, you can take those. And I'm going to hand over the other set, correct? Yes. Over here, over here. Here?
Once again, this is a replay of the extraction of the crew, some of which we saw live within the hour. That's Jack Fisher, of course, back on Earth after 136 days in space with
well.
Fyodor Yurchikhin. Peggy Whitson was the last out of the Soyuz vehicle. She was seated in the right seat of the descent module. All 3 crew members in the nearby inflatable medical tent. By now they will have had their doffing of the suits and are undergoing initial medical tests before they fly back on individual helicopters to the staging city of Karaganda. Once in Karaganda, the crew members will split up. Yurchikhin will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for the flight back to Star City. Whitson and Fisher will board a European Space Agency aircraft for a flight to Cologne, Germany, near the European Astronaut Center, where they will be handed off to a NASA support team for a flight on a NASA jet back to Houston. The NASA team, of course, was delayed in getting directly to Karaganda because of the effects of Hurricane Harvey in the Houston area. But that Gulfstream jet is at the Cologne airport awaiting the arrival of Whitson and Fisher on a European Space Agency aircraft for a handoff to the NASA personnel that will fly them back to Houston.
Еще где-то две эмблемы.
А две эмблемы Арбуко и эмблема Союза. Обязательно.
Только смысл снимать так близко, но отойти чуть-чуть.
Step back. Please step back a little bit. Don't take video so close up.
Итого, а ты правильно набираешь? 128, 027?
Are you dialing the right number?
You're on.
А что, не получается?
This is Mission Control Houston. Again, you're watching a replay of video acquired within the hour of the extraction of the three crew members who landed safely at 8:21 p.m. Central Time, 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Fyodor Yurchikhin and Jack Fisher in the field of view. Peggy Whitson will be extracted, or was extracted, a short time after they were placed in their comfortable reclining chairs. Once we see Whitson out of the vehicle in this replay, we will begin to wrap up our coverage. And there is the replay of Peggy Whitson being brought out of the Soyuz spacecraft and placed in her chair, which we saw a bit earlier. Again, all three crew members emerging from the Soyuz spacecraft after a flawless descent, accompanied by spectacular video of the Soyuz descending under its main parachute. All three crew members, again, out of the spacecraft in the nearby inflatable medical tent. This is a replay also of RSC Energia technical personnel essentially rolling the Soyuz descent module to the right orientation so it could be lifted upright, enabling access for the removal of science samples and other cargo that was brought home in the Soyuz vehicle. So with that, concludes all the replays we have from the landing site in Kazakhstan. Once again, a flawless descent and landing for the Soyuz MS-04. Peggy Whitson, Fyodor Yurchikhin, and Jack Fisher safely back on Earth as the work continues to fly those crew members back to the staging city of Karaganda and then back to their respective homes. Yurchikhin going to Star City, Russia. Whitson and Fisher will be flying back to Houston for an arrival on Sunday night. That'll wrap up our coverage for today. Thank you very much for being with us throughout the course of the day. Back on Earth, the Expedition 52 crew, safe and sound, Whitson, Yurchikhin, and Fisher, home after a record-breaking mission. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for staying with us throughout the course of the day. This is Mission Control Houston.